Kay, thank you so much for joining us again. Kay is the Associate Director for Graduate Student and Postdoc Career Services at the University of Connecticut, and she is in their Career Center for Career Readiness and Life Skills, and she is the expert on these things. So we're so pleased to have you back today. So I will go ahead and move to the first slide.
All right, sounds great. Thanks so much, Sarah and ISA, for having me. I apologize to folks about some of our technical issues today, but we've pretty much all been there, I think, at this point. So I just want to fill in a little bit more. We're with the University of Connecticut, which is in the state of Connecticut within the US, and the university is an R1 institution. So just in case we have folks from around the globe joining us today. Our topics are going to cover optimizing your profile, how to showcase skills, accomplishments, and research, some tips for expanding your network in a very authentic way, and then exploring career paths and opportunities. And in the time that we have, we won't be able to do a deep dive into each of these, but I hope I provide enough that gives you some tips to apply to your own profile. If you have a LinkedIn profile, feel free to have that open during our time together today as well. All right, so with any adventure, it's really important to know your why, in part because it's really hard to sustain one's engagement or activity when you don't have that sense of purpose. And with LinkedIn, your sense of purpose may change over time. You might be using it to collaborate with others. You might be using it to look for new employment or expand your network. So I'm just going to encourage you to think about what your why might be for engaging in or expanding your current use of LinkedIn. Go ahead. Yeah, so some of the reasons that you might consider expanding your use of LinkedIn is within the US context, about 77% of recruiters are using LinkedIn to surface candidates. So just like you're looking at them, they're looking at you, and this is true of companies and organizations. Within the US context, employers also expect you to be there. We know that if an employer has two good applicants for a position, that they will be more inclined to do an interview with the individual who has a presence on LinkedIn. And by a presence, that's not having a LinkedIn profile that maybe you haven't looked at in 5 or more years. It's actually having an updated presence on the platform. I love this quote that not networking equals not working. So another reason to be on LinkedIn is definitely to engage in networking. And we also know that employers really look to referrals from individuals that are already in their companies and organizations. So you can use LinkedIn as a platform to make some of those connections so that when you are applying for an opportunity, you have someone on the inside that can actually say, hey, I think this individual would be a great person to interview for our fill in the blank position. Additionally, LinkedIn is great for exploring collaborations. And these might be research collaborations. They could be co-authoring types of collaborations. It's also a place where you can help and support others and where you can share your knowledge and expertise. It's also a place where you can stay informed about industry and organizations. Most entities have their own pages within LinkedIn, and usually they're posting news about what's growing in their organization or what shifts have taken place or who the new leadership is. So it's a great place to stay informed. You can search jobs and internships on the job board feature. You can build your own credibility and trust in being maybe a thought leader or someone who commonly posts on certain topics. And it's a place for you to surface new opportunities as well. And then it's definitely a place where you can increase your visibility with recruiters. So now I'm going to shift to optimizing your profile. Once we have our sense of why we're engaging in LinkedIn, maybe why we're expanding our use of LinkedIn, we then want to make sure that we optimize our profile. And by that, it essentially means having the best profile as possible. And there are several sections of a profile that we want to make sure are optimized. And I'm going to have Sarah share her LinkedIn profile, and we're going to use that as a teaching tool today. And I'll be covering most of the items on this list in terms of Sarah's background picture of herself, her headline, her about section, her experience section, and we'll move through some of those sections and I'll provide some tips.
So here I am. Can you see me?
Yeah, we can see you. Yes, and thank you for sharing as well. It's not always easy to be the demo, right?
I
Oh,
know it needs some work and it has
yeah.
not been updated. Um, so yeah, looking forward to your comments and hopefully they'll be helpful to other folks as well.
Great. All right. Well, thank you. So right up on the very top, you will see your URL where it says linkedin.com, Sarah Dorr, 300892183. Do you see where that is, Sarah?
Yes.
Yeah. So a recommendation is to go over to the right top corner where it says public profile URL. And this is where you can edit that URL to
Mhm.
align more specifically with your name. Now, you might find that there are more than one Sarah Doors out there in LinkedIn land, but you would go in here and you could use the little edit pencil
Mhm.
tool there. And that is where you could actually put in your name or a combination of your name and change that to truly align with how you refer to yourself. So
Yeah.
we see it's not available. So then sometimes people will do something like put PhD, or maybe they'll put a number, but not a birth date or anything like that. Um, and so that should be correct. Yeah. And then when you refresh, you should be able to see the new one, or shortly after our session,
Hmm.
you'd see the new
Hmm.
one show up there. And that's done just to kind of create this consistency. If you're putting your URL on a document like a resume or a CV, it's a lot cleaner and nicer to see it consistent with your name than to have this trail of numbers. The next thing we're going to talk about are your photo of you and your banner. The banner would be the carpets that are behind you in the image there. And what I like about that is that when we're sitting in the US context and we see those carpets, it does have this feel of international, right? Beyond the US. But for someone in a country situated in a country where this
Hmm.
style of carpet is common, it wouldn't necessarily read as international. So, you know, given where you're situated, this banner can work really well for you, but it might not signal the same
Hmm.
kind of content as if you weren't situated in the U.S.
Yes, and I took the carpet picture is a photo from my PhD fieldwork in
Uh-huh.
Kyrgyzstan, and I took this at a market. And so my intention was to signal in some way that that was the focus of my research.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I had not thought about how it might be interpreted in different contexts. So that's really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Great. And then your photo is super. People will ask me, they'll say, "Oh, is this a good photo?" I think a good photo is one where you look like the person showing up. So, and by showing up, I mean showing up virtually for an interview or a coffee chat or just a conference presentation, anything like that. If, for example, let's say, you show up and your hair color is drastically different. You have, let's say, bleached blonde hair, but your picture here is not that. That can create some dissonance, and then people spend time thinking about that dissonance instead of recognizing that you're here with them.
Mhm.
The next section is right below your name, actually, and this is called your headline. Your headline identifies what you are. You're a director of professional development. You could actually say who you are there or include who you are. What this does is it gets some of the key words associated with your field, career sector, career pathways into that section. So you could say Director of Professional Development. You might even keep PhD in International Studies, but then you could add with a focus in or certain kinds of skills. You could add in there with a focus in X, utilizing A and B. So it's a way to enrich that uh, kind of impression. Think of these as like first impressions, and it's a way to enrich the impression of who you are. So not just what you are.
Mhm. Is there
Will
a word limit for that or
there is, but it's a lot longer than you'd imagine. I saw a question about changing some of this. There is a little pen pencil icon for the banner as well as this first section. So you should be able to change the banner in there as well. Let's keep moving through your profile. So next, I'm going to speak about your about section. Some folks might have this as a summary. This is another great place where you can identify some key content about who you are. Uh, Kind of think of the headline as this little snippet, but then you can build out your content here, maybe 5 to 7 sentences. There's two schools of thought about this. One is that you should fill that section up as much as you want because LinkedIn's giving you actually a lot of space there to write about yourself. Others say, oh, just have it be 5 to 7 sentences. I would say if you choose the long form, make sure those first 5, 6, 7 sentences are the most telling, I would say, about your skills, knowledge, and expertise. What I like about yours is you've identified like the duration, like your like duration of expertise. You have the 10 years. You've identified regions and countries. You've identified how your work has informed you and provides you with certain skills. So that's wonderful. You could change this if you were in a job search mode and you knew you were applying for certain career paths, you could adjust this to reflect some of the skills with those career paths. But this is doing essentially what it needs to do. And you end with this openness of having individuals reach out, which is really wonderful. So let's keep going here. And we're actually going down to the experience section. And, this isn't a deep dive into LinkedIn, but I'm hoping that I can give you some tips as we go through the sections. With the experience section, what I notice here, Sarah, is that some of your entries have bullet point statements and some of them don't. So at some point, you'd want to update that, because when I see the bullet point statements, I'm seeing like, oh, that must be more important than those other two things, right? But we want to make sure that we're saying a little bit more about the content of our background and experience that is kind of the most important. So I'd encourage you to add bullet point statements there. With my profile, I've typed in the word accomplishments with a colon, and then I put what my accomplishments are for each experience, and then I have some bullet point statements. But the nice thing is someone can just initially quickly look and see, oh, this is a significant accomplishment as a research scholar or a director of professional development, and then a combination with a few of the bullet point statements.
I think I
Yeah.
can pull up your profile if that's
Oh,
helpful.
yeah, just quickly, if
Let
you'd
me
like to do
see.
that.
Uh, all right.
Yeah, so if you go scroll down to my experience section, and you don't need to really click on anything there as much as, so here you can see I have my associate director role, and then I have just that accomplishments content. And when you're just skimming through it, what someone initially sees without clicking more is just that accomplishments content. But if they want a deeper dive, then they would go, click more, and you'd see the bullet point statement.
Right. And I can see
Yeah.
it with the see more. Oh, that's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, just ways to feature our skills, our knowledge, and our experience. And there's many right ways, and there are many ways within LinkedIn to do this, and I'll touch upon some of those as well. So let's hop back over to you.
Okay. All right.
All right. Let me see here. Okay, so we're going to hop into the skills section next.
Mm. Should I show
What?
all 23?
Sure, you can do that.
Okay.
Absolutely. All right, so now we're going to navigate some of the functionality of this section. So let's click on the plus button in the top right of that section. And LinkedIn is going to recommend some skills for you. You could also type in a skill that you want to add. But for purposes now, let's just choose one of the skills it's recommending. So just click on one of those. All right. So now LinkedIn is saying, okay, you've chosen interpersonal skills. I want you to tag that to where you utilize that skill. So
Okay.
you'll always want to have your profile fully formulated, because you want to make sure that when you go in and tag, you can capture all the places where this has occurred. So now we aren't actually going to do that, but you can see that you could click, oh, in my research, in my director position, in my teaching assistant, you have lots of places where you can click, click, click. And then it will show up in your experience section. That skill will actually show up tagged in your experience section.
Let's see how that works. Okay, my skill has been added. And
We're going to go out of skills. Yeah. And let's see if it's there
Oh
yet. Yep.
my goodness.
Yeah. So it's a lovely way for someone looking at your profile to not just see what you were called and maybe a bit about your accomplishments or what you did, but what skills are showing up in the various experiences that you've had.
Okay.
Let's go back to that edit tool. So back to your, oh, in skills, sorry,
In, okay.
in skills. Yep. Yeah. Now there's three dots there to the left of the plus sign. Click on that and you can see that you can reorder. So let's say you didn't want interpersonal skills to be what you lead with. Now you're going to have these, I call them ladders over on the right. You see the lines? Yep, just slide those around. So pull that down, click on it and pull it. There we go. So now you're also able to shape that first impression, right? I was
Mhm.
working with an individual and, I think Excel was their first skill, but that really wasn't what they were skilled in. They were skilled in nanotechnology and some other
Mhm.
wonderful things. So you'll want to use this reorder function to, reorder at least the top, I would say 20, beyond 20, you can just kind of throw them all in at the end there. But I would say the first 10 to 20, you really do want them kind of prioritized in terms of your level of kind of competency.
Okay. And I saw the endorsements option
Yeah.
there
Yep.
too.
Yep.
How important is an endorsement?
A lot of back and forth on that. When we have, let's say my brother endorses me for something, it's my brother, right? It's not someone who's at let's say, a level of leadership in my organization. So employers look at it sort of with the idea of like, okay, well, these endorsements seem to be all this individual's peers. Oh, but this person has endorsements that seems to be supervisors or
Mm,
leaders that they may have encountered. So recommendations are actually kind of a stronger signal to employers, but you can certainly turn on and off endorsements. So,
mhm.
all right, now we're going to go back up to the top of your profile. Yep, all the way up. And you see a section called Add Profile Section. Yep. So now here, if you go in, so here you can see that you could add projects. These could be research projects, but you don't have to click on it actually. What I would suggest though is like, if your research is central to what you are, you might not want those projects buried in another section. You might want to actually put those in your experience section. So you don't have to think so, literally about, oh, experience, that must be jobs or fellowships or something like that. You can really utilize the sections as best suits your needs of kind of telling your story. So if you put your projects and add projects, it'll be another section in your profile, but it's going to be below your experience section. So sometimes people put their projects in their experience section.
Mhm.
You could go to oh, and then featured is neat. This is where you can almost build a portfolio. You can take posts, you can take media, you can take various content from your profile, and you can put it in this featured section, and it comes in high on your profile in terms of
Oh.
where it appears. It's kind of a way to build a portfolio of sorts. And then I'm going
Mhm.
to have you go back. You no use the arrow. Yep. Oh, go back. Go back. Yep. This is great. People get to see a live coaching session here. Go into additional. at the bottom there, additional. All
Mhm.
right. And so here you could add your publications. You have some, I know, in on your profile, volunteer experience honors and awards and so forth. So that's really a wrap on some of my key tips for the profile. And then once we have the profile, we can comfortably start reaching out to others and expanding our network. So I'm going to shift into that part of the PowerPoint.
Um, we had two questions come in
Sure.
about the profile.
Mm-hmm.
The first is, do you have a recommendation on a headline when your current role is adjunct professor? And does this kind of heading limit what you're telling to people who view your profile?
So it would really depend, as so many things do. If you were looking for a tenure track faculty position, it's not clear to me if you'd be staying in academia. You want to think about adjunct professor is a title. It's a what? What am I? Associate director. What is
Mhm.
Sarah? Director of professional development. What
Mhm.
are you? Adjunct faculty or adjunct professor. So it goes back to this idea of who we are. Do you have, content expertise and teaching experience in X and Y? And that's much more of a, a like who than a what, than a like a job title. So for me, it would, if you were using this for, a career growth or a career transition, how you answer that would actually impact the way I would coach you through what you would put there.
Mhm. Okay. So it depends. It could work and it might need a little more expansion to bring that
Yeah,
who
broader.
in. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Another question was about the experience. Do you have advice on how far back to go with experiences? For
Nice.
example,
Yeah.
5 years, 10 years.
Yeah. Um Again, you're going to hear me say it depends. Let's say the experience you had 10 years ago was actually the foundation of what you're doing now. And you want to show that development of skills and thinking and experience over that time period. You certainly can go back that far. If the 10 years ago you was something very different, and that would actually be a distraction to how someone would know you, then you might not put it. So I could say, like, oh, there was a time in my life that I taught winter wilderness survival. But like, that's a distraction to what I've done for the last, couple of decades. So I wouldn't put it in my profile.
Hmm.
So again, critically thinking about what is it doing for you to have it there? Is it showing some, it's not showing current skills and the development of skills can change a lot over 10 years. So for me, it goes back to what's your why? What are you hoping to use your profile for? And will having that be advantageous to you?
Okay. And we had a question, should you post your CV on LinkedIn?
This is an area where there's a lot of debate. Some people say yes, some people say no. It runs all the same sort of security concerns that
Hmm.
we see on other platforms. Sometimes people will post, but they won't post their contact information. So they'll just post kind of the content of their CV. It's a very, really personal decision.
Okay.
All right. So let's go to posting to feature skills, accomplishments, and research.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you. All
Lovely.
right. So once we feel we have a profile that we're pretty comfortable with, you definitely can comfortably start posting your own content. In the conversations that I have with individuals that I'm working with around career coaching, sometimes they're concerned about, oh, if I post, is it going to sound like bragging, or am I actually featuring or showcasing some of my skills, knowledge, and training? So if you go ahead and click, Sarah. The difference. Bragging is unappreciative, non-inclusive, self-indulgent, and lacks a foundation. So I think we could pretty much agree on that. Showcasing is appreciative, inclusive, and is built on a foundation. So let's see the example that I have there. So if this person was posting on LinkedIn, they might say something like, this week I had the opportunity to present at the International Studies Association Northeast Region Conference on, and they would insert their topic. I especially enjoyed learning about, fill in the blank. I'm grateful to engage with others who provide feedback and share insights. Is anyone interested in collaborating on, fill in the blank? Please reach out. This is a really nice post because the person is identifying, hey, I'm at that conference, which is great for networking purposes. They've identified a topic, which again starts to reinforce their expertise. They're showing that they're a learner, that they have a growth mindset, which signals to someone looking at this that, you know, they aren't sort of closed-minded about anything, that they're open, they appreciate learning. They've identified that they value feedback and insights. And then they have this call to action, so to speak, about is anyone interested in collaborating on a certain topic? So not only are they posting to feature their skills, their accomplishment, and their research, they're also posting to expand their network. Mm-hmm. We're going to see another example that's for commenting. The first thing I'm going to say with commenting is at the bottom of this slide, which is don't rely solely on using emojis. It's so common that when we see a post, we quickly click on the hand clap or the heart or whatever emoji there, we think might be appropriate. That actually does nothing for you and the algorithms that LinkedIn uses in terms of its tracking your engagement with the platform. It's also not that helpful for the person that receives it. I mean, yeah, you could see that there was some hand clapping, but were they clapping that I was at the conference? Were they clapping that I'm open to collaboration? You know, my thought is if you're inclined to go for an emoji, stop, pause, and think about what you would say to that person. And it doesn't have to be some long drawn out thing. It could be 2 sentences. I really enjoyed your presentation today. I share an interest in the same topic. I'd love to connect for an informational conversation. Mm-hmm. That's it, you know. And so in this example, we see, let's pretend. So I have a little scenario here that I'm actually going to refer to. So give me a minute to grab that. So for this post, let's say you follow the United Nations on LinkedIn, and maybe they posted about educating youth about various international topics. So then let's imagine that your research focuses on educating the whole community, not just sort of child-centric. And the whole community means inclusive of adults and seniors in the community. And so then maybe you comment on the United Nations post, and you might say something like, when we talk about education, we usually think of young people. However, older adults can and do continue learning, not only to develop new skills, but to slow cognitive decline. During my summer fellowship at, name of organization, I developed a curriculum to increase senior engagement in international topics like XYZ. You might have a link to for people to access maybe a website that you have, a professional website that you have, and then again, kind of call to action, this openness of what are your thoughts, or what are your thoughts on this topic, and then some hashtags that match that. So this is a comment, instead of a hand clap, it's a comment that actually positions the individual who wrote it by sharing some skills, some accomplishments, and perhaps some research as well. It also is expanding the network. So we'll move on to the next slide here. With expanding your network, we talked about how posting and commenting can do that. You can also share content with your network and beyond. You can connect with new people and groups. You can join and get active in groups and possibly create and manage a group, and really find things in common with others. How easy is it for you to go back to your profile? Because I thought I could maybe share how to manage a group.
Here we are, and I do manage a group actually.
Yeah, great. Okay. So
Um,
let's go to your profile, but not the edit. So just click on your, yeah, let's get you not in the edit function, but just your regular profile. You could go over to view profile. Yeah. So now down on the left column,
yeah, why won't it let
we
me
see,
scroll groups? Yeah,
yeah,
groups.
we see groups. And this is where you can actually create your own group. And I wanted to share that. And you could invite people to that group. So we see that Sarah has a group, Pay It Forward Alumni Network. And of course, if you have a group, you have to manage it. You have to commit to certainly creating conversation within the group, posting content and whatnot. But it's just another way, like maybe you've looked on LinkedIn and you're like, I know there are people out there like me, but I'm not really seeing a group within LinkedIn that resonates. I know I'm going to start my own group, or you might have a peer or friend or colleague that you'd want to start a group with. All right, so let's keep going here. We're back to our slides. And a lot of times people are like, well, okay, so I connect with people. What do I say? You can definitely share something you're interested in or something you read. You can ask questions of people. You can mention that you're attending an event of interest. You can post and give tips or share a new piece of knowledge. You can provide updates, as I shared in those examples, about your accomplishments. You can reach out to folks to learn about their career journey, and we're going to hop back into LinkedIn to do that as well. So when we connect with people, perhaps we're interested in exploring career paths. You can go on to the next slide.
Okay.
Yeah, and opportunities. And so we can do that in a few ways by frequenting company organization pages to see their news. We can follow companies and organizations. We can look at profiles of individuals within job titles and go ahead. Yeah. We can search jobs and become aware of who and in which sectors there seems to be some hiring. We can set filters, and you can leverage that participation in groups.
And
Some,
Kate,
yeah.
one of the things is I see that LinkedIn has this feature, apply for a job
Mm,
here. I would err on the side of caution of doing that and go directly to the website, but I just
correct.
wanted to get your take on that as
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we find some employers only post on LinkedIn, but we would always recommend going to the website, and it gets tracked how you actually come into the employer's HR platform, whether it was through LinkedIn or the website.
okay.
I'm going to have you pop back out. Yep. So now we're going to go to more in common, and I'm just going to quickly share a couple ways to look at an entity. In this case, it's a organization's website. So if you can pop out.
Back to LinkedIn.
Yeah, back to LinkedIn.
Okay. Should I
And you're
search
going,
for
yeah, more in common. More in common. There
this?
you go. And you can see the company. Yep. And this is all where you can see the tabs across here where you could look for groups. But we're going to go to more in common. So go ahead and click on more in common. Yep. And now we can learn about the organization. And one of the things we could do is where it says show details, we can find out a little bit more about the organization. There's a link to the organization's website there. And maybe we're curious about jobs. So to the right of, yep, great. So we click on jobs. Now we can see there's a research associate job, there's a data analyst job, and maybe we aren't looking for a job right now, but we're curious about what skills or knowledge or experience one might need to be a research associate at this place or similar kinds of places. So then we can learn about the position, we can see the skills, the duties of the job if you scroll through there. Yeah. Yep. Keep going. Keep going. Yeah. So now we see a little bit more about the role, expectations for the individual in the role. So whether I was looking for a job or not, this is a way where you can become really informed about what employers are looking for in terms of the kinds of skills, knowledge, and experience. And if you start to look at let's say you look at 10 different research associate jobs, you may even start to see patterns and
Mhm.
be able to think about skills that you might need to gather to be a competitive candidate.
And I'm
And
seeing
then,
these great action verbs, drafting,
yes,
producing,
absolutely.
delivering,
Yeah.
um, managing, right?
That that can inform your skills section as
Mhm.
well, right? You might not think of putting managing in, but then every job you look at has that in there.
Mhm.
So let's quickly go to people. So on this same page, I'm going to have you, let's see. No, you're going to, yeah, click out one view. So use your back arrow. Yeah,
Mhm.
great. All right. And now go to people, the little
Okay.
people tab. And now I'm going to filter by what the individual does. So we're going to use the right arrow at the right corner. Yeah, great. Oh, up. Nope. There's our arrow. Go back.
This one?
Oh, yeah, correct. Yeah, good. And now what they do, let's click on research. Okay, and now we'll see some individuals that have had some sort of connection to this organization. We're going to scroll down and let's go to, let's go to, let's see, let's go to, I don't know how to correctly pronounce, but Rabhaya
Okay.
Marota. Mhm.
Click on her profile.
Yeah, yeah. So now we can see what this individual's career path has been. It's
Mhm.
another way to research and expand our ideas of what we might do, who we might be, what our career path is. And when we look at the experience, we could maybe find organizations or companies that this individual has worked at that might inspire us to look at other opportunities. So, a lot of neat ways to leverage this kind of area within LinkedIn to expand our network. And then I might reach out to this person and say, oh, I see we share a background in X. I'd welcome the opportunity to connect. And then through the LinkedIn messaging system, once we connect, I could send something more significant about arranging a virtual conversation.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we're winding down here.
Mm.
We'll go
And we
back.
do have a few questions as well,
All
but
right,
just
so we'll go back to the PowerPoint.
Mhm.
And then I'll hop out for questions. So really, I've included in here some core actions to include in your LinkedIn strategy. I'm not going to read through them. You'll have access to these, but just some additional tips and kind of putting to practice some of what I shared in today's session.
Mhm.
And so what I'd like to answer some questions certainly, and I'd like you to think about one action step that you might take to either engage in or expand
Mhm.
your relationship with LinkedIn.
Mhm. Definitely. Um, all right. So one question that came in is, how should you present your profile if you really don't have any work experience to date?
So you could focus on some of the other sections. And I would encourage you to think broadly about work experience. So maybe you had a volunteer leadership role that was very significant. You could put that in your experience section. It could also go into a volunteer section. You wouldn't put it in both. You choose one or the other. But we know that that experience section is kind of higher up in your profile. So I would encourage you to think about work experience, like don't think about it as work experience as much as experience, and kind of taking over that experience section in a way that serves you basically. Yeah. And fill out the other sections, where you may have um, content.
Mhm. If you are on the job market, is it worth paying for the premium account, and what features does it add?
Yeah, so the premium account, I mean, everything we showed you today is through just LinkedIn, no premium account. I don't know. Do you have a premium, Sarah? No.
No, I don't have a
Yeah,
premium.
so I mean, premium gives you more access to building your network. You'll notice like you're going to be limited to how many people you can reach out to. Premium shows you more about the applicants, your relationship to the jobs you apply to and the other applicants, which for some people that can actually be a distraction. Uh, so, sometimes you weigh the pros and cons of having more of something versus kind of having less of the functionality, but being able to focus more. Um, when people feel that they don't have access to what we call social capital, that's like the phrase we use in my career world, um, having a premium membership, even for a short period of time, can give you access to people that you wouldn't have access to build a network. But it's amazing how quickly a network can grow just by starting to link with a few people from conferences, collaborators, uh, past employers.
Mhm.
Everybody knows somebody.
Does having a premium account give access to LinkedIn Learning? No.
I am actually not sure of that. I know that we get special deals sometimes for LinkedIn Learning, but I am not aware that it automatically provides that.
Okay.
So I'd say go ahead. Yeah, research.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I'm not sure. There's a question that asked, are there benefits to being verified?
Uh, I would say just you can do it. It's just part of building the profile. It's I'm not really certain why LinkedIn felt the need to put in that layer, but they did. I know people who do it and other people who don't.
Mhm.
Um, I think it's another area to to definitely do some research on.
And a question came in, do you need to be a premium LinkedIn member in order to message someone? I have not found that in my experience, but I
Yeah,
get a limited amount of people that I can
correct,
message that aren't in my network. So
correct.
I'm not sure what the exact number is per month. Maybe I'm able to add between 5 and 10 people and message them, and then it
Yeah.
resets.
Yes,
Um,
yes, that is correct. But you can get people to introduce you to other people. So, for example, if I saw someone in your network that I wanted to connect with and we're first connections, I could reach out to you and say, can you do an e-introduction through LinkedIn with,
mhm,
so and so who's part of your
mhm,
network? They do limit it. And part of what's fascinating about LinkedIn is that it's always changing. Like at one point, you had up to 12, I think, uh, opportunities to connect with people, and then they reduced that. And, they're always making changes to the platform. Um, so you kind of have to. Uh, do a little research as you're using it. They have a
mhm,
great help center on your LinkedIn profile. If you go to the bottom right when you're just not in the edit mode, but just your profile with your thread on it, bottom
mhm.
right, there's a little area that says help center. And there's a ton of good content in there that's
Good to
produced by
know.
LinkedIn. Yeah.
All right. We had, I believe, two more questions if you have
Okay.
time, Kay.
I do. I do.
Um, so one question asked, would you put a second job of adjunct professor on LinkedIn, or is that a distraction from the full-time job?
If I was on a career track to show my uh, roles in academia, I would probably put the adjunct in
Hmm.
um, to show that that's been part of the journey. For me, again, without seeing sort of the whole historical context and what the purpose is, it's difficult for me to definitively say, oh, yeah, I definitely put it in, or no, I wouldn't. I mean, it would also depend on how recent it was. Was it the most recent position? There's a lot to unpack with that. It's not as simple as, yeah, go ahead or don't.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Right. If it showcases different skills.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah, for me, it's always going to come down to like a strategic kind of a strategic decision in what's going there.
and the last question we had come in was about using LinkedIn as a vehicle to share their thoughts. Now, the question doesn't have background about exactly what ideas they had
Hmm.
in mind to sharing, but
Yeah.
they said they usually use Twitter to share
Hmm.
thoughts related to their profession, and they're worried LinkedIn is not as quote light as Twitter. So,
Hmm.
how do you find that balance? Do you have
Yeah, I
recommendations?
think knowing where your profession is hanging out. So I know that Twitter for some academic areas, Blue Sky for some academic areas. These are other platforms that's where people are having these conversations, sharing, looking for collaborators. There's been a lot of growth on LinkedIn in terms of like the academic environment and more individuals using LinkedIn as an additional platform. You
Mm-hmm.
know, it allows for more than Twitter. I think doing both ideally could be really great, but then we're going back to sustaining, you know, our efforts in both. But there are also technologies that allow you to manage your platforms and the posts that go out to each of the platforms. So it's definitely something that individuals do. I'd say know where your people are. If they're on Twitter, then I would keep doing that and then consider how LinkedIn might round out or allow you to show a bit more than what's the capacity is for Twitter. It's a great
Mm-hmm.
question. Yeah,
All right, that was the end of the questions that came
great.
in. So thank you so much, Kay, for all of your
Thank you.
insights today. And I definitely have a better idea of some of the options within LinkedIn. Um, we're getting some positive feedback in the chat, so I
Great.
hope you get a chance to look at that.
Thank
But
you.
I know that it's time for me to update my profile. And it should be ongoing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Definitely.
Because we're changing. So thank you for navigating. Wow. I've never done a session where I haven't been like in control of all the pieces. So I really appreciate you pivoting as well. Thank you.
Oh, no worries. I think this worked very well. And thank you, everybody. And
Thank
thank you,
you.
Kay. And we'll be sending along Kay's slides today. So have a wonderful rest of your day, folks. All right. Bye now.